Hi, I'm Jenny Ray, and I want to thank you so much for coming back to my YouTube channel. Or if you've just arrived, welcome. It's lovely to meet you. And I have been doing YouTube off and on for about a year. I've been mainly focused on Instagram, but this year, 2022, is going to be the year that I really kind of go whole hog into YouTube. I've got my ring lights, dug out my old camera. We're going to do this properly, and I'm so excited to get started, and thank you for joining me. This is the first video of a three-part series. I will start with 3 tips in this video, and then the next video will have 3 tips, and then the last video will have 4 tips, so you're going to want to stick around for that. I've saved the best till last as well, so hit the subscribe button and get notified when I release those videos in a few weeks' time. So the main reason I've done this kind of YouTube series is that I totally feel it when, as an artist, you might have a few precious minutes to draw something, but you end up kind of scrolling through Pinterest or Instagram or any kind of other site looking for inspiration, and before you know it, all that time you've had for creating is gone. You've spent it just looking for inspiration, and you're stuck in this kind of mindset where you feel really guilty because you haven't done anything. And I want to let you know that you don't have to feel like that. It's totally normal, for one thing, to kind of get stuck in this mind freeze when you're trying to create something, and you get stuck, don't you? You get that sort of art, you get sort of, not necessarily art block, I would call it sort of paralysis in a way, where you just like, I want to draw something and I don't know what to draw. And I usually find it's because it's making that first step, it's actually starting, that becomes the barrier to us carrying on. So I've come up with these kind of 11 little tips here to just get through that mental freeze, to get through that mind block, and to just start creating something. It doesn't have to be elaborate, and that's the kind of problem is that a lot of us have, is we want to create something that's perfect, right? We want to draw something. We've opened this brand new sketchbook, or we've turned the page in our sketchbook and it's beautiful, it's got this pristine layout that you want to kind of draw in, and you want to be adventurous, right? Because that's who you are. You're a creative person. You want to be making stuff that you're proud of, that other people look at and are jealous of you. Well, not necessarily, but you want to be making stuff that you're happy with, right? And if that first thing that you come up with is not something you're happy with, that can be the thing that stops us from carrying on. So that's why I've come up with these tips. Each one is to kind of help you get through that mind block. They're not going to work for everyone. This is not a solve-all situation, but hopefully these 3 tips today and then the next 2 videos will have something that will help you just get through that barrier and to get drawing. So without any more hesitation, let's get started and check out those 3 tips that I've got for you today. Right then, so tip number 1. Let's start with making an intro page. So this kind of works for both new sketchbooks or even old sketchbooks that you've started in but you've kind of drifted away from. And it's really good for if you want to kind of set yourself a new artistic chapter. When you design an intro, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. Here I'm literally writing new sketchbook, and I'm putting a start date and a space for where I can write the finish date later as well. I find that putting in something like the date is actually a really great way of tracking your progress. So it kind of lets you look back to that date and kind of go, okay, where did I start? How far have I come? And seeing that kind of improvement that you've made over the course of this sketchbook or this block of the sketchbook. So it's also quite a good way of kind of breaking that artistic barrier. You know, when you've kind of opened a sketchbook and you've got that lovely clean page and you've gone, I really want to draw something but I don't know what. Just putting something like an intro page is so simple. You've put pencil to paper, and then you can kind of doodle and just fill it with kind of brain spew and make yourself a page that it has no expectations. For me, this was so nice. I don't tend to actually do an intro page to my sketchbooks, but I found that doing this was just so simple. I just kind of kept it nice and easy. I literally wrote new sketchbook, dates, put a little drawing of my Dusty in, and did some collage on it as well. It was really basic, but it's kind of broken that kind of wall and kind of made a start in a sketchbook that I could have easily spent hours kind of deliberating over what I was going to put on the first page. So I find that doing something like an intro page, it gears you up to kind of mentally refresh. I don't know if that make any sense, but so how often do you look at a sketchbook that you either have started or a previous sketchbook that you finished and you've gone, I want to be better than that, I want to improve, but you kind of have that mental barrier to say, well, there's nothing really defining the difference between then and now. When you've done a intro page or you've done a separation in some way that is physical, that's something that you can refer back to, you're sort of mentally resetting at the same time as physically resetting this book, for example. And it just gives you a really nice reminder that you can kind of check back on and say, okay, well, that chapter of my life in my old sketchbook is finished. I'm ready to kind of get ready and gear up and make some new awesome content for your books or for any artwork in general. You're just kind of giving yourself a physical pause, a physical notification to yourself in a way that you've reset. So it's super simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. And you know, it's all personal anyway. You can do whatever you like in it. I just did new sketchbook and dates. You could put, you know, your favourite doodles. You could do some scribbles. You can just fill it with stuff that makes you happy. But it doesn't have to be anything overly extreme. It's just breaking that kind of art block in a way. It's just kind of getting you drawing, which is great for motivation. Once you've started, it's easier to carry on. So that's tip number 1, and I'll be back in a moment for tip number 2. So for tip number 2 of starting a new sketchbook or a new drawing is quite simple, and just draw what you know. You know, you've got some drawing time, you want to draw something adventurous because that's exciting, right? You want to try something new. But what do you draw? If you've never drawn it before, it's quite hard to get started. So you kind of commence doom scrolling for ideas, right? You spend hours looking for something, and before you know it, we're out of time and we've drawn nothing. So just keep it simple. If you want to feel like you've drawn something, stick to what you know and keep it familiar. And the best bit is that if you've drawn it 1,000 times already, it's probably going to turn out better than drawing something you've never drawn before, right? I know that's not exciting, but we're just talking about when we're starting a new sketchbook here. It's just the best mentality to take is to start with something you know, and then you end up with this kind of delicious positive mental attitude in that you've drawn something you're happy with because you've drawn it 1,000 times already. You've put pencil to paper, you've started, and it's more likely to come out, you know, how you're happier with. And even if you're new to drawing, you'd probably walk before you could run, and start with something that you love and something that you kind of know well, than drawing something really complicated. Because we don't thank ourselves when we've tried something new and it's come out in a way that we're not happy with, especially if it's super complicated. And if it's outside our skill level, outside our comfort zone, that's a good thing. That is a good thing to do, but bracing ourselves for you know, starting a new sketchbook, just be kind and do what you know. And doing something hard and perceiving like we failed is kind of a surefire way of killing that motivation. So just set yourself up for success. Think of it like when you're playing a piano, you wouldn't be expected to play something like Flight of the Bumblebee before you've nailed chopsticks, right? So just kind of start slow, be kind, and don't push yourself if you don't feel like you can achieve something right now. And I think that's a really good way to start a new sketchbook. So that'll do for tip number 2, and I'll be back again in a minute for tip number 3. Okay, so I appreciate how this one sounds, but tip number 3 is don't think, just draw. There is method to the madness, I promise. I think the problem that many of us have, or at least I know I do, is that when my brain gets to thinking, I tend to kind of nope out of whatever task I'm doing at the time, especially for when I'm drawing. If this is a kind of a casual drawing session, then it's an issue, right? Because all I want to do is put pencil to paper, I want to get going. And if I start overcomplicating it by using my brain, which, I think most of us are using our brain most of the time, but mine goes into overdrive. I'm thinking about things that are so unnecessary, overcomplicating a drawing session by going, right, I want to be perfect, I want to make an amazing page, when all I need to do is just draw something, you know? So it's kind of like I've got suddenly overwhelmed and I'd much rather be doing something else, when, you know, it's an important thing to do as an artist, is to practice drawing, and that is practice drawing anything, you know? So the best thing I can suggest for something like this, when you just draw, stop thinking, just draw, is to draw the first thing that comes into your mind, right? So I had these stickers. The first thing I drew was a really poor sketch of one of those stickers that I had in front of me, and that led me on to thinking, oh, maybe I'll draw some botanicals, very simple botanical drawings that I've drawn before. And then suddenly it was a bird, and then it was a cat, because, you know, cats like birds, and it kind of grows from there. And it's really simple, it's essentially doodling, and it's broken that ice wall again. It's kind of gone, I'm just drawing something. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. This is what a sketchbook's for, right? It's sort of be full of sketchbooks and doodles and practices. You're just kind of building up muscle memory by doing stuff like doodles. It's actually really valuable. So that's one thing, is just draw whatever comes to your mind. Or you could draw something in your immediate vicinity, you know, like you've got a cup of tea, draw the mug. You know, you've got, you know, little things in front of you, just draw something, okay? So don't go crazy, it's fine, you're okay. Just let yourself draw whatever's in front of you, and it kind of gets you moving, and that's the really important thing. And it's essentially mindfulness. I don't know how many people that are watching this have practiced mindfulness, but it's focusing on the present, right? It's just focusing on now. And doing something like this, where you're just drawing whatever comes into your mind, is bringing you back to the present. It's bringing you back to the now, and is letting you kind of create without that much pressure. So keep it simple and just draw whatever comes to mind. Don't think, just draw. So those are my first 3 tips. Stick around for a minute and join me for the outro. So there you have it. Those are my first 3 tips on how to kind of break that mental paralysis that you get when you're about to start a new sketchbook and you have no idea what to do. In my next video, I'll have 3 more tips to help you break that creative freeze. So for now though, if you want to see those 11 tips in whole, I've actually got a blog post where I've written everything down, and you can find that in the description below. I've also got a Patreon. I know lots of YouTubers are like, come subscribe to my Patreon, it'd be really helpful, but it genuinely is. I'm a full-time artist, so every little bit of support financially comes in is really useful to me. There's a bunch of different things you can get rewards. You can have exclusive access to my Discord and my private Facebook group, weekly colouring pages, monthly prints. There's a bunch of little things there that just a thank you for the support that you give me. And if you want to, help contribute making this YouTube journey even more possible, then I'd be so grateful. Thank you. I'll leave it in the description for you if you want to check that out. So just like every YouTuber in the history of YouTube, I will say hit that like button, smash subscribe, and turn on notifications if you want to get reminded when I release my next videos. So I will thank you again for joining me. I can't wait to see you for the next one. So love and good vibes, and I'll see you soon. Come on, Dust. Gotta do it for YouTube. It's important. Come here. Come here. Show the world what you're made of. Yes. Good boy. Come here. Come here. Look. Come on. Good boy. Oh, thank you for licking that. There we go. Good boy. So yeah, every like is a treat for Dusty. Just saying. Breath.